In this section, we're going to go over some key points in marketing. Should be things that you know from marketing from previous courses. So these concepts will be talked about throughout the course. This also demonstrates what you're going to have to do in a Pechakucha because every slide is going to change after 20 seconds. We deal with the marketing mix. The basic marketing mix is price, place, product, and promotion. This is going to be a key element we're going to think about when we think about marketing in general. When we think about marketing, we're going to have to think about how we're going to execute this idea of price, place, product, and promotion. And we execute this through the marketing plan. The marketing plan consists of the mission and vision, internal and external analysis, STP-D, SWOT, 4 Ps, then implementation and control. This defines what your business does, describes your products and services, defines your target audience. It says what are the 4 Ps of your particular product or service. It says what you're going to offer, what kind of message you have, and the communication means you're going to have in order to let people know what's going on with your product. We deal with internal and external analysis. Internal analysis deals with the things inside of your company. For example, in Nike shoes, Nike was involved with the creation of the modern running shoe, and so they had, technicians and athletes who worked with them. External analysis deals with more like external things like political, economic, social, technological, and environmental. These are external factors like taxes or environmental legislation that is going to affect how your company is going to go from one country to another. So again, to take the example of Nike, a political situation could be whether or not they have to pay taxes in a certain country. An economic issue would be what type of economic environment they have in Colombia. So are they going to be able to sell lots of shoes in Colombia? Social, when do people wear shoes? Technological, what technological advances they can make. Implementation means how we're going to get our product or service to a particular market. You have to think about implementation when you're doing a marketing plan. It's not just good enough to have a product, but you have to show me how it's going to be implemented. Control is going to involve how you're going to make sure that the quality or the price is going to remain within your target. So how are you going to manage costs, or how are you going to make sure the quality of your product or service is up to the level that you hope for? You can look at like Stereo Picnic. How do they make sure the bands show up? STP-D, segment, target, position, and differentiation. You'll hear this throughout the course. I'll say, what's the STP-D? Segment, target, position, and differentiation. Now there's little differences in all of these, and we'll discuss these as we go on. For example, in market segmentation. Market segmentation are naturally occurring groups. They could be age, they could be gender, they could be things like millennials is that market segment. Or there can be other market segments like people who live in the Candelaria or the north of Bogota. These are market segments. And then we look at targets. We have a primary and a secondary target. So for example, Nike shoes, maybe the target market would be runners because they're running shoes. But the secondary market would be maybe mothers who want a casual shoe that looks good, that matches the color of their clothing. So you can always have a primary and secondary target. The position is where you want the product or service in the mind of the consumer. If I say Nike, do you think running shoe? Or do you think casual shoe? Or do you think sportswear? In my case, since it's from my hometown, I think Eugene, Oregon. Position, where it is in the mind of the consumer. Differentiation is how is your shoe or how is your product or service different from the product or services of other organizations. So in the case of Nike, Nike's first major competitor was AIDA. How did Nike differentiate itself? It became a much more technical shoe. On your shoes, if you see a triangular wedge on running shoes, that was developed by Nike. Consumer behavior differs significantly from one country to the next. So the way I eat breakfast, which is coffee, is very different from the way you might eat breakfast, which is scrambled eggs, juice. I'm going to drink coffee walking down the street. You might have it, at a table. Now there's different segments we can have. One of them is lifestyle. So even though maybe I'm the same age as my brother, I have a much different lifestyle than he does because I live in South America. We're the same age, same genders, in many ways the same segments, but our lifestyle is different. Another way we can be different is life cycle. Best way to illustrate this is think about your parents. For many of you, I'm about the same age as your parents. However, my life cycle is much different because I have an 11-year-old child. Your parents probably go home and watch TV. I go home and play Roblox and play badminton with my son. There's also something called psychographic segmentation. Psychographic segmentation is where we place ourselves in where we believe we are in the social structure. So I was talking to my cousin, same age as me. He's an accountant, and he's a very, professional person. Me, I have a life of basically a graduate student in college. There's different types of buying behavior. You don't have to know these specifically. Simple buying behavior is just when you want to go get some gum. Complex buying behavior, it's going to be very complex if you buy a house or a car. Sometimes we have variety-seeking buying behavior. In other words, we want different types of shoes, so we buy based on the new shoes we want. We want a bunch of different variety. CRM means Customer Relationship Management. And you always have to think about this. How are you going to manage your customer? There's a lot of different CRM softwares. I use Sugar CRM, but it's something you should consider. Always see how you're going to do it. Now we're going to look at some charts. The BCG matrix is very common. This shows the difference between or compares market growth rate versus relative market share. So let's take Nike again. They have low growth rate for Nike shoes, but they have a large share. But they have a high growth rate for Converse. Yes, Converse is Nike. Or a perception map. How do we perceive, certain things? Like in Colombia, maybe a Mercedes-Benz is high price and high quality. But in the United States, it's moderately high priced and it's moderately high quality. Mercedes sits in the United States where Audi probably sits here. Then there is the SWOT, and I know that you probably at this point in your business career know a SWOT. We're not going to do the basic SWOT. Later in the semester, we're going to learn the graded SWOT. But this is a common thing that you should know walking into the course. B2B, B2C, B2G. Business to business, business to consumer, business to governments. These are common concerns, and you have to know where your business is going to sell. The key concept here is to remember B2G, because indeed your sales to governments can be a big portion of your total sales. Influences are peoples or communities who help influence the way you buy, decision, or how a consumer acts. For example, several years ago, many of you probably were dancing and in dancing twerking. Why did that happen? Because Miley Cyrus twerked on television and she was an influencer. For businesses, it's a little bit different because they have to have decision makers. Often these are purchasing managers who decide where they're going to buy goods or services from. In Sabana, the purchasing managers are in O, and they make decisions about where they're going to buy all the food that comes to campus each day. It's a big job. Your comparative advantage is how you have an advantage over a product or a service. Nike initially had a comparative advantage over Adidas because it was more technically advanced, first by the wedge, then by the waffle or the different soles, and then by the air soles. All of these things give an advantage, and each one can have a different value proposition. Now, just because you don't like something doesn't mean it doesn't have a value proposition. Low cost could be a value proposition, or very technically advanced like Nike could be a value proposition. What value does the consumer get? That's the value proposition. Your perceived value, though, is what value you perceive you're getting out of a product. iPhones. The functional value of an iPhone, the value proposition, is a communications device and a small computer, but the perceived value is often a fashion statement. Can't be cool going around with a flecha. A brand is related to product. A brand is literally just the name of the product, but there's many extensions to the concept of brand, and brand marketing is a very potent and talked about idea in international marketing. For example, you can talk about the brand image, which could be the colors or the logo. The brand identity, what do you think of when you think of a certain brand? You think of Nike, they want you to think of sports. The brand equity is the money that's been put into the brand over the years, and co-branding is like when you work together with another brand. So Nike with a football team. I'm a service guy, so I think a lot about the service mix because the marketing services is substantially different than marketing products, and we'll talk about this throughout the course. But there's 4 key elements to the service mix that make it different from the marketing mix. These are intangibility, inseparability, variability, and perishability. This course is intangible. You have it online. It's just digital. It's digital ideas. You can't really touch it. It's inseparable. The course that's given here is inseparable from me. I'm the professor, and therefore you're going to get a different course from somebody else. Product life cycle, there's going to be a lot of different product life cycles. We're going to talk about the fad, the trend, and the international product life cycle. The basic product life cycle is intro, growth, maturity, and decline. But do recall, there are many different product life cycles. Price, 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 price. Price affects us in lots and lots of different ways. So there's different ways that we have to deal with price when we go internationally. A lot of these have to do with taxes, but then there's other ways that price comes into play. For example, penetration pricing. One company now that's using penetration pricing in Bogota is SmartFit, the new gym. They're coming in and they're saying you can have a membership for 59,000 pesos a month. That's about a third of what you could get from Spinning Center or MegaFit. Why do they do that? Because they're a Brazilian company entering the market. MegaFit and Spinning Center, however, charge a lot. They're trying to skim the price. In other words, they're trying to get the most amount of profits they can in a very short period of time. Now, this has lasted a long time, but realize gyms before SmartFit came here were more expensive than they were in the United States. Cost plus pricing you're going to see in business organizations. Halliburton uses this. You're going to take the cost that you have to make the product or service, and then you're just going to add a certain percentage on top of it. Halliburton adds 20% above cost. So if the cost of something is $1 million, they're going to charge $1.2 million. Price elasticity has to do with how demand continues or does not continue based on changes in the prices. Cancer drugs are inelastic to demand. In other words, if the price of a cancer drug goes up, they're still going to sell as much cancer drug. Why? Because without it, people are going to die. A marketing channel is any way that you're going to get a product or a service. The channel for this class is digital. However, there's also a face-to-face course. That's a different channel. So remember, it's just the way by which you get a product or a service. Now, a franchise is one method you can get a product or service. In a franchise, you get a method for doing a business, and at the same time you get the license or the rights to use that business. So let's say if you have Cien Montanitas, which is a fast food chain from Spain, you're going to get a book, and it says what you have to buy, how the restaurant has to look, and what's on the menu. A joint venture is different. A joint venture is when two companies get together, contribute money, and try to have some type of business activity together. We'll talk about some other things, but joint ventures usually involve, for the purposes of this course, the exchange of money. Licensing is different. Licensing is when you have the rights to use or distribute a product. For example, two examples would be Hello Kitty and Playboy. Playboy has the bunny, Hello Kitty has the cat. You get the right to use and change that particular image. Contract manufacturing is a little different. It's a license to make a product in another country. Michelin tires. Michelin tires are made in France, but in Colombia they're made in Medellin. A company in Medellin has purchased the contract manufacturing license to make those because the logistics are so expensive for bringing those from France to here. And omni-channel is the idea that you're going to sell in many different international markets simultaneously, or through many different channels simultaneously. So maybe you're going to sell through Amazon, 6 p.m. shoes, Walmart, local grocery stores. That's an omni-channel strategy. But that creates conflict sometime. For example, maybe Nike is selling their shoes on Amazon, but local retailers are selling it for a lower price. That creates conflict because your product or service is different in the different channels. When the product or service is different in the different channels, there's channel conflict. The promotional mix we're going to talk about especially in the third part of the course. But remember, there's 5 elements of the promotional mix. These are super important and you have to memorize this because we're going to talk about it a lot in the third part of the course. So if you haven't memorized it, do that now. So the promotional mix includes advertising, promotions, public relations, network marketing, and direct sales. So ads, any type of ad, promotion like giving stuff away, public relations like giving, volunteering, network, which online stuff, and then direct sales when you go out and actually talk to people. The most common advertising framework is AIDA: attention, interest, decision, action. That a commercial tries to get your attention, draw your interest by maybe doing something crazy, get you to make a decision, and then like that you're going to buy, and then action, which you actually buy. And finally, we're going to deal with ethics. Ethics are just the concept that we're going to try to act ethically in a particular activity. So this is the basic concepts. You should have learned these in Principios de Marketing or Introduction to Marketing, and it's expected that you know these. So if you don't know them, make sure to look them over. Thanks so much, and I hope this was a good review.